Welcome to the post-pandemic revolution in the F&B industry, how automation can change the game panel here at the APAC F&B Innovation Summit. My name is Chris Albrecht. I'll be your moderator today. I am with the OttOmate.News, a publication that covers the business of food automation. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Thank you, Foodland Ventures, for putting this together. This is great. We've got a wonderful panel, and I'm just going to hand it over to them so that they can introduce themselves. I'm going to start this the way that I have it sort of set up in my Zoom screen here. Andy, I'm going to start with you. Andy, can you please introduce yourself and tell us what company you're with?
Hi, everyone. This is Andy from Yokai Express. We're a company trying to set up the autonomous restaurant and then serve people gourmet food in 24/7. And we won't be able to have a limitation on the time and the place to eat the gourmet food. So everybody can enjoy the delicious food anytime, anywhere.
Right. But in particular, Yokai, you make a ramen vending machine, right?
Well, we make a full automation vending system. So we are not really focused on the ramen anymore. So we can do the rice plate, we can do dim sum, we can do dessert. So we basically cover a lot of different food varieties. So we actually in 50 locations nationwide in the US. So we are bringing more and more different variety of the food.
Excellent. All right, Stephen, introduce yourself.
So I'm Stephen Yang. I actually oversees Focus Brands for Asia Pacific. Focus Brands, as you see on my back screen, we own some of the brands basically, and we are backed by a company called Roar Capital. So other brands like Cheesecake Factory, Carl's Jr., Sonic Burger, Arby's, a lot of the US brands actually belong to our group. So we're one of the biggest F&B brand groups in the US that are multi-brand. So you hear of like Starbucks, you hear of McDonald's and KFC, but we are one of those multi-brand companies. We have 55 brands. We're running at about 35 billion in system-wide revenue. So big company as a group. And basically Focus Brands, and there's another arm called Inspire Brands, basically is our sort of operating company around the world. So we are now looking into automation. We've been testing automation in some of our brands, and there's more to come. So nice meeting you guys.
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. And then we're going to round things out here with Sean. Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sean Su. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Botrista Technology. At Botrista, we make a robotic barista to help restaurants or food service operators to make a menu extension. So basically, we help them to extend their different menu items to elevate the experience for restaurants. And basically, this is a play of, instead of replacing labor, we are helping restaurants to add a bar without hiring a bartender. We work with restaurants like Focus Brands or a lot of big chain restaurants right now. And the goal is to basically elevate the menu by not just having sold out drinks on the menu for fast casual or QSRs, but really into a more thorough mocktail, cocktails, or like a more fancier menu like Starbucks.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's just, given the name of the panel and it's sort of the looming question over everything, right? Let's just get it out of the way and let's talk about the pandemic real quick and how that has changed things. Sean, I'll start with you since we ended off with you there last time. When a bar or a restaurant or hotel or whoever comes to you for your technology, right? Like you make a drink making robot that's cloud connected, right? What are people saying? What is their priority for you? Are they saying we want contactless? We're having trouble with labor. Are they saying, we need to have something that operates throughout the day? What are people coming to you with now as we sort of kind of emerge from this pandemic?
I think there are really two different types of restaurants that we're talking about, right? One is the restaurant that has a bar with a liquor license that they're already selling cocktails, right? So for this type of restaurants, last year was really bad because for dining, there's almost no traffic. But this year they are coming back, but the problem become like it's hard to get the bartender back to work because they are all kind of chilling with the government sponsorships. So they don't have to work, but they still get a paycheck basically. So it's hard for these restaurants to actually get their bartender back. And especially we're talking about a bartender of like 2 bartender per shift. There's typically 2 or 3 shifts of bartending. So for that kind of segment, they're looking for automation for the back of the house to basically help them, continue to extend offering this kind of menu. In terms of the ones that doesn't have liquor license, they are struggling in a different way, right? So like the experience of food or restaurants became not dining. A lot of them, most of the restaurants have more than 50% of their revenue from delivery or takeout now. So during delivery and takeout, customers actually don't order soda drinks because it will either get flat when it arrives, or they can pay for same drink but a lot, like 10 times cheaper if they buy it from grocery stores, right? So for this kind of restaurants, we actually find out that since the behavior of ordering food is a lot different today, now they actually want to have a more different type of drinks than just a soda drinks. So a lot of restaurants actually are looking for crafted, complicated beverages like Starbucks, strawberry acai lemonade, or mango iced tea. So these are the sectors that they actually want to serve in this restaurant type where they don't have a liquor license. And as a result, again, they don't have additional budget for a bartender, and it's also hard for hiring a bartender. So that's where automation become pretty interesting, because they want to serve a more complicated, customizable product, which is very complex to make, but they also don't want to add another people on their payroll, right? So that's where automation can become an opportunity as well.
Excellent. All right, Stephen, you're on the other side of the equation, which is why I'm glad you're here today, right? So as you are talking with companies about automation solutions, right? So you're out there meeting with vendors. What is sort of your priority as you go out to market?
Well, to touch upon what Sean is saying too is, as sort of coming out of the pandemic, habits have changed, right? Habits have changed. If what we're really seeing is also as sort of inflationary things are happening, labor becomes an issue, right? Supply chain is an issue. So, we noticed that, at least at the forefront, that the first tier markets like the Japans, the Koreas, the Singapores, the more expensive markets when it comes to labor and real estate, they're really kind of aiming towards automation, right? Because they know that it helps them on the labor cost, it helps them on the real estate cost, right? And the point of sales could be a lot more scalable, right? So that's what we're seeing on the forefront. I think, again, touchless technology, we've been testing. I know some panel might have heard that, Jamba, one of our brands, Jamba, is testing automation. We kind of rolled out kind of what Andy's doing, these automated sort of robotic machines in the US. We rolled it out as a test to see how they perform, understanding more about how customers interact with this machine. Is it viable? What is the breakage on it? What is the maintenance on it? Is it durable? You know what I mean? We won't roll it out until we understand that it could go a year or two without, major breakage, right? Because that's the concern. If we're going to roll it out across the world, we can't have a machine that breaks down every 3 months, right? So a lot of that things coming into automation. I think there's a huge lean. Again, first, we're seeing more about first tier cities and first tier countries, right? If your labor is cheap in India, maybe that's not something that you're going to lean into at this point. But yeah, this is the sort of the direction it's going. Are we 100% sold on because we're to the consumer, right? So are we 100% sold that the technology is going to kill it and kick ass? We believe in it. We just need to test it. You know what I mean? And see that it is viable. And who are the players, like Andy, Sean, and everybody else in the field? We want to see who are the guys that are able to get this technology to a point that we could really scale. So.
Okay, so that's it, because the automation you're doing is with a company called Blended, and it's a self-serve robotic autonomous kiosk, right? And you just opened up your second location in last month.
Correct.
You had the Fremont store, I think, in California with the Walmart.
Yep.
And then you just opened up at a mall in California. I can't remember I can't remember what. Anyway, but what I think is really interesting and what hasn't been elucidated so far in my reporting on the subject is you just said that you need to test this for like a year, and I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of I think one of the things that this panel can help with is robot startups or automation startups understanding what it takes to work with a food brand. And so you're going to be putting it through what I'm hearing you say is that you need to put it through its paces so that you can scale it out to all your brands globally. Right. And so are you putting this, just to follow up really quickly, so are you putting this in places where it'll get rigorous testing?
Correct. So I mean, we started off with the Walmart location. Again, we want to put it in a high traffic location, right? To see the wear and tear on it, right? Because the worst thing you could do is you roll out, 300 of these across a market, and they start breaking down, right?
Right.
So for all the entrepreneurs in this space, for us is, man, it's what is the maintenance? Why? Because the minute if something goes wrong with it and it shuts down, right? What happens? How long does it take to get it back running? Who's fixing it? Who's supporting it? And what about the software updates? Like a bunch of stuff that comes into play and realize, hey, you need someone to service this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to Andy over at Yokai, which I think is interesting because you are in also, like, everybody here has a different sort of thing, right? Like Sean is selling into restaurants, Steven is with the restaurant brands, and you're acting as like almost a brand extension, ideally, right? Like, I know that you've moved on from ramen, but I'm going to focus on ramen because that's what I know you from. That's what a lot of your machines are already out there, right? So you've built up your food brand, Yokai Express, serves delicious hot ramen, right? And then you've gone and you've started working with these brand partners so that they can take their ramen menus and basically put them anywhere, right? Like you can install a ramen vending machine in an airport, or you're at a university right now, right? So I want to get from you kind of both sides of the equation. One, let's start with, you're at a university right now installing a Yokai machine. What do universities, what are they wanting from automation right now? Or do they have a specific set of needs?
Well, I think let's talk about this direction, because in the school, in the campus, some of the students live in the campus, right? So usually they will feel like hungry during the study, during the midnight, or maybe they go to a party, they need to find something to eat, but not too many options during the midnight or early morning. So in that case, if the food and beverage company or the school, they want to provide some service, they need to have additional labor, or they need to have additional resource to support it. But by adopting our solution, actually give them another opportunity, which they don't really need to have the on-site staff to serve the food to the student. They can just come in. For example, we have one location in Miami, and they actually create a whole store, which for our vending system. So student can actually come in 24/7. So you can see a lot of midnight sales happen because the student, they feel hungry. And
I don't even know what it's like staying up to midnight anymore. I can't even imagine.
Exactly. So that's why I think that's one of the largest advantage that campus or the university, they are seeing our benefit. So that's why they are looking for more kind of automation to install in the campus.
Got it. Okay, now I want to turn that question just a little bit, and I want to go towards, you've been working with ramen restaurants in Japan, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And
now, when you're creating a platform, right? So when you go out to these restaurants, what are they most interested in? Are they just like, oh, I want to be able to operate 24/7. I want to be able to basically install a machine and extend is it brand extension? What is it, what is most interesting to them about Yokai?
Well, I think like Steven, the group handle a lot of a different brand. To open a store actually costs a lot of money and resource, and it's actually time consuming. So for those company which they locate in Japan, they want to expand overseas, it's kind of hard, especially during the post-pandemic. You need to have a trained like chef or the staff to be on site, and then the overall cost of the rents and labor is increasing everywhere. So it's really hard for them to go out of their own, like the countries. By working with Yokai, we actually create a specific SOP for their recipes and then process. So we can actually fan out to different region, different countries easily. So for example, we already have many partner in Japan, which we already finished development their recipe. And we are bringing back to US and then even go to like Korea, go to European. We can quickly duplicate those recipe and then start selling their product on our platform. So imagine that we have a 50 location in the US, we're gonna have another 50 location in Europe. They can have their tiny, small micro store in our machine, which means they can have additional 100 restaurants to sell their product overseas. So it's a different model compared with the traditional restaurant business.
Awesome. All right, Sean, you recently did a deal with the halal guys, right? And I think is that the first high profile sort of restaurant partnership that you've announced?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me, as you were working with them, did you have to do anything specific to accommodate your machine to that environment? Or was there anything in particular as you were structuring that deal that you had to sort of create as it was happening?
Yeah, I think in general, I think kind of like what Andy said, right? Like our real opportunity is more of like helping these operators to extend their different type of revenue source or profit source, right? So for us, at first we were trying to like frame the deal as, you know, a traditional business, selling the machines and all that traditional ways, but like they actually view us as a long-term partner to help them on not just provide the machine, but actually a turnkey one-stop shop. So we actually end up spending a decent amount of time to actually integrate the entire system for them. So we not only supply the hardware now, we also you know, actually get the entire menu for them through the cloud, through the recipe online, and you know, part of what Steven said as well. I think one of the big things they did negotiated for a long time before we signed the deal with them was that the servicing, right? What will the servicing network be? Who is going to be servicing, updating the machines, and then like how does the maintenance package work? So that was what was a big piece of it. You know, we have to promise, you know, in most of the locations we had to fix the machine within 24 hours, right? Some have to be less than 8 hours in downtime, and then we have to meet the industry standard. Like we look at Coca-Cola machines, we look at like Pepsi's machines and look at their uptime. So, you know, I would say like at least 97% of the time the machine has to be available. It cannot be more than 3% downtime in general. So those are a lot of like deployment and operational details that we actually need to figure out with this larger chain, as you know, Steven's comment, right? They really, as a scaled operations, they really want to make sure the moving pieces are less, the risks are really low, and then you know they're actually getting what they're expecting. Because once the menu is there, they cannot, you know, say that, you know, kind of like once the menu is there, they cannot actually say, sorry, we don't have this product today, right? It will be look bad to their brand. So I would say reliability and servicing is definitely one of the big things that we've been spending almost 18 months figuring that out, and now we finally got a lot of improvement.
Are you able to say sort of what that would look like, right? Because as you look to scale up, right, like do you have Botrista service technicians? Are you working with other sort of, I know there are some online services, there's something like 86 repairs is like an online service, right? That will do if something conks out in your restaurant. Is like, how do you scale that up without just hiring a ton of people?
Oh yeah, so that's a great question. So we actually in our Series A last year, we made a strategic decision to bring a company called Middleby. Middleby is on board. They actually have a lot of resources helping us to, you know, find the local servicing networks and help us in all different kind of angles to get this type of resources. So like there are more than 3 main suppliers in the United States that they know how to fix these kind of machines. But there's actual some challenges though. You know, in terms of the user interface, the machine has to be somewhat easier to understand than a robot, right? I worked at Tesla before. I did a lot of robotic manufacturing, and I know that programming PLC or robot operation system is extremely complicated. You know, so it requires like at least 5 years training for a technician to know how to fix this machine. So we basically redesigned the entire interface. So any person, like within 10 minutes of training, they know how to fix the machines. Like it's typically a pipe issue, or it's a flow meter issue, or it's ingredients issue. So we invest in a lot of time and money to figure out like how do we make the user, which is any staff and any white glove technician, can handle this machine when it's down.
Excellent. Stephen, I want to ask you a question that's particular to Focus, which is how do the franchisees play into all this, right? As you're looking to make plans and roll out automation, what is the relationship with the franchisee? When do you bring them in? What does that sort of look like? I know we're very early on, right? But I think that your second location, your second Jamba location, is a franchisee who is interested, right? So what's sort of the communication and the workflow to get your franchisees on board?
So, I mean, we started sharing this with our franchisees early. We do let them know what we're doing. Of course, because if this technology does, go off with flying colors, we're going to roll this out. We even did a calculation and talking to franchisees, on a global scale, if would you be interested in something like this if it's workable, right? I mean, just off a very simple sort of calculation, I mean, our franchisees has basically committed, said, hey, I think we could do about 1,800 of these robotic machines. That's a simple, just, talking to our Japan franchisees, our Korean franchisees, basically our first tier franchisees kind of gave us a number and we kind of added it up and we're like, wow. So we're saying that if this thing works, we could roll out potentially 1,800 units very quickly, right? Now, it does take pricing into consideration. I think I can't disclose the pricing, but
sure.
Ultimately, in order to scale this down, you got to get those prices down. Right now, that comes with scale too. If you're able to roll out, and if our partners are able to commit to a certain number, we could probably be able to get those prices down as well for per unit, right? But yeah, I mean, our franchisees know about it. We test the market to see if they would invest in it, and majority of them would, especially in first tier markets. They're all interested. So.
Do you have to go through, and to the extent that you can tell me, right? Can you tell me, like, do you have to create entirely new franchisee agreements, or are your existing ones broad enough to where this type of thing can be slotted in without too much of a administrative sort of rework?
So it's more about, because I mean, we have basically master agreements in most markets, right? So basically, this would just be another product. Now, we still need to define what this, robotic machine, that's what we're partly testing about the revenue, the cost, the maintenance. After we get all the data points, we understand, how to make this worthwhile. Now, the reason we franchise is we want to make sure our franchisees make money, right? And the more money they make, the happier they are, the more they invest in our brands as well. So we're looking at it in a point where once we figure out the economics of it, we would probably do some type of amendment, or addendum to their existing franchise agreement if they choose to take on sort of this robotic arm of Jamba,
okay,
for instance.
And then again, speaking broadly, just is there a business model that's more attractive to Focus? Are you looking to lease the machines, buy the machines? Like, you see people come into market with like a rev share, right? So there's no upfront. There's just a per, like if you think of E-Bar over in the UK, there's no upfront cost. They set up their beer vending machine and then just take a cut of the revenue. Is there something to you, again, to the extent, I don't need you to give specifics, but is there something that's more attractive to you?
Yeah, I think for us, it's probably all of them, right? So we're not going to leave money on the table either, right? So once we gather all this, so I can't answer that yet because we're still trying to figure out the economics and per machine on average what the AUV is. So we're trying to figure that out, and we're going to look at it holistically and understand, hey, how much can we give away? How much are they going to make? How much should we take, right? So I would say we're open to all of it, right? I would imagine it would be some type of revenue share. Okay, that I'm seeing. So it could be something like, you know, they have to invest in the machine. We set up, you know, basically we help them set it up. They invest in it, and it's a revenue share.
Sean, can you remind me real quick? You've said what your business is, right? Like you have a per drink cost, and then there is a. Are you saying what your go to market typically is?
We kind of do a pretty easy to understand business model now, similar to Coca-Cola. So we release the machine, we call it a robot as a service fee, and then we sell the ingredients, the cartridges.
Okay, got it. Andy, I want to pivot things over to you here and sort of change up the question a little bit. So as you are going, so again, I know that you've added capabilities to your machine, but we're sticking with just like the ramen, right? Because that's what you've been doing for the past year. So as you are going out to these restaurants, is there some concern about sort of competitive concern? So if you're going to a bunch of different ramen restaurants, they're all kind of getting access to the same platform, right? There's no differentiation between sort of ramen house A and ramen house B. Is there ever any sort of fight or concern around exclusivity as it pertains to being a partner with you?
Well, that's a very good question. But, you know, go to some like New York City or in San Francisco, you will see like a ramen shop. They all like concentrate into the same area. So there may be like 10 ramen shop in a few blocks. So in that case, I think that was similar to our platform. We provide a space for them to sell their product 24/7. So each ramen shop have their specialty. Some ramen shop, they have a thick broth. Some ramen shop, they have a very good tasty, like a chashu or something. So I think each ramen shop, they have a different like fence. So we just provide them a different opportunity to have those ramen in different timing or different locations. So I don't see there will be competition over there. Actually, you can think about each machine will become like a ramen museum, right? So everybody go there, they can enjoy all kind of product. You can try this one today, you can try that one tomorrow. So basically, I don't see that will be some competition to each other.
Okay. But and then your machine's going to be capable to handle all of those different things, right? So if it's a thicker broth or a thicker noodle or some kind of protein specialty, your machine will be adaptable to handle that.
Well, we will not say we can handle all of the products, but we will say that we work with those ramen brands to create something it's feasible to put on our system, and it's like almost 100% replicate from their original recipe.
Okay, since this is the APAC F&B Innovation Summit, I'm wondering, I want to open this up to everybody, right? Which is, are there discernible differences between automation readiness and we'll say desire or demand for automation in the Asia market versus the US market? Sean, I don't know, are you working globally or are you focused on the US mainly right now?
We only focus on US mainly right now. We work with like larger brands, international brands. So we, you know, brands like Focus Brands, Inspire Brands, like RBIs or Fat Brands. So these kind of brands, they actually have a headquarters in US, and then they will distribute out once, you know, kind of like Steven's team, like they will have an international team to do the deployment.
So I'll narrow the question down then for you before I open it up to the others, which is, so have you found that the interest in automation has accelerated? Right? Like we're coming out of the pandemic, there's people want contactless ordering and food pickup, and then there are labor pressures, right? So restaurants can't even staff dining rooms because they don't have enough people. Is there like, we've talked about, you know, I feel like for so many years, we've talked about like automation is on the verge of something. It's like, it's a little far off. And then the pandemic hit, and then suddenly it's all accelerated now. And I'm just wanting to confirm, like, is that true or not? Do you find that people are more open and eager to include automation as part of their restaurant systems?
Yeah, I would say like when we first went to the market, like go-to-market strategy in 2019, you know, we based in Silicon Valley, so there were more early adopters kind of personality for our customer, and now like not just early adopters, but like the later adopters, especially mid-size, larger size brands started to adopt this concept. So we think there's a lot of I would say traction and trend in this sector now.
Excellent. Stephen, you've got sort of, I was going to say fingerprints all over the world, but that sounds a bit more menacing than I wanted to, right? But you've got presence all over the world, right? Is there a discernible difference between, the automation market in Asia versus the US?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think it's about first tier markets, right? Like in Asia, majority of the US is on it because you have a lot of technology, like Sean, Andy. I mean, they're coming out of the US right now, but with Japan, Korea, Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, all the first tier markets are really into it, right? They're asking about it. The minute they saw us roll it out, blended, right? Some of them called us, right? Say, hey, you know what? We saw this on YouTube. We saw this on this. So they're asking about it. Now, the second tier markets, the Indias, the Indonesias, not there quite there yet, because I think it's about labor pool, right? For them, they're like, labor's cheap. We got a people, we're going to use them, right? But first tier markets for sure, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spoke with Dibya over at Mukunda Foods, which is based in Bangalore, and they make food automation processes. And he said it's not finding labor that's the problem. It's finding labor that the right skilled labor. And so they really take that into consideration as they're designing their machines to make it, you can really walk up and push a button and get a biryani made.
And this goes to price. So if they're able to scale and get that robotic machine down in price, then the second tier markets would have a shot, right? So currently where it's at, I think some of the second tier markets or emerging markets have a hard time absorbing that cost. That's the problem.
I think, Stephen, you brought out a good point, because like when we expand to Japan, actually the problem they have, labor cost is high, but they want to have a skilled person, and then they need to follow exactly the SOP that they have in the original restaurant. It's really hard. But in the secondary market, they are not really looking to like very good quality, but they are looking more like pricing. So in that case, I think pricing is very important and very sensitive for us to get into the secondary market.
Yeah.
Okay, so if pricing is so important, then do food automation startups then need to reevaluate sort of how they're going to market, right? Like you start off, you think about something like a miso, right? Like originally their Flippy, I think, was like $75,000, and it dropped to 50, and now you see it as more like a robot as a service kind of model. Do you think that they just need to adopt that now? We just need to bring the upfront cost down to a place to where it's like, I mean, I hate to say like really cheap, but it's really cheap.
Well, I think from my point of view that when we talk with a different region, they actually brought out a different concept. For example, we talk with some India companies. So they are not looking for like very, very high ASP products. They want to sell like very quick, and then they want to break even very quick. So in that case, we actually can think about how to lower down the cost to like a lower end model. We don't really need to sell the high end model. So in that case, we can quickly deploy the like lower class generation machine to those secondary market. And in that case, that we can quickly deploy like many hundreds of thousands of machines.
Okay, I want to pose another question to the entire group here, which is on education, right? So, and by that I mean, when you're designing machine, it's got to be easy to use, and you've got to, Sean, you've really brought up a good point about like servicing it, right? But as you go out and you educate people, so you're going out to halal guys, Sean, right? And so what is your process for sort of educating the people that work there about how to use the machine? Or is the machine just needs to be designed so dead simple that really anybody can walk up to it and use it?
Yeah. That actually, it's a real question now, right? Like every 2 to 3 months, there's a big new rehiring in their shift. Like any restaurant, every 80% of people are new, right? And the process actually, at first we have SOP, and we have a dedicated trainer who train every single person in the operations to make sure the staff knows how to operate the machine. So we move from trainer. We are automating the whole training process. Basically, we move from trainer now to SOP, and now finally it's the machine has its own program to train the humans. So we let the robots to train the staff to actually know how to operate the machine. And there's like tutorials, there's like try run, like how do you make the machine? It's very interactive. So it's actually a big changer for, scale that we're talking about now. We are in more than 100 locations. It's impossible for us to actually have an overhead in training programs like that. So does that answer your questions?
Yeah, no, I just, I think these are very new ideas. Like, and if we're outside our little world here, the concept, like if I talk to somebody just that I know that, I meet at the market, right, that I'm friends with, I tell them, what are you doing? I'm writing about food robots. And their eyes just go like, what are you talking about, food robots? And I'm like, well, they're kind of everywhere right now, right? So, but it's for people who aren't covering it or aren't immersed in it, it's still science fiction to them. And so, Stephen, I'm curious from your standpoint, right? Like, so we don't have to focus on blended, but the idea of blended being integrated into a franchisee's workflow or, some other automation, do you have to create sort of these education plans from the top down as you roll out? Like, what do you bake in to the process?
Well, I mean, one, to your earlier question, simple as possible, right? Because we are consumer facing, right? So our message to our partner Blended is it just has to be simple, right? The consumer needs to know exactly what to do. And when you look at how to order, it's there, right? It's really simple. The more complicated, it's not going to work. Okay. So hence we're testing right now, right? We don't know that answer off yet because we don't know if they're going to, grasp onto it really quickly. So far, what we're seeing is the consumer, at least in the US, it's getting into it very quickly, right? They're ordering on the phone, boom, touch list, easy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So far, so good. Blended has tried to make it as simple as possible for our consumers. And it seems to be like there's not that much education, too much education on the consumer part. But again, we're testing it in California, sort of savvy consumer base. Again, I think we're probably not going to have issues like that in Japan and Korea because all very savvy tech-based kind of cultures, right? Now, when we roll out into other markets, we may have some more issues. But for now, it seems like it's fine.
Well, I think that's sort of the beauty of co-branding, right? Like, because I used a blended machine years ago, back when it was just a blended machine. And I knew about it because I had written about it, but somebody else just walking up to it is going to be like, what's a blended, right? But if they walk up to a machine that's got a Jamba logo on it, well, then suddenly they're like, oh, well, I know what I'm going to get from this machine, right? Like I don't have to do any mental math around it. And I guess it's the same thing with Yokai, right? Like if you're partnering with a brand, a ramen house, right? I don't know if that's an actual name of a place, but if I walk up to a Yokai machine, I might not give it two minds. I might not pay attention to it because I'm like, oh, okay, it's some big hulking machine with a screen and I don't know what it does. But if it's got a co-branded ramen, on it that I know about, then like, oh, again, like I'll know what I'm getting into. But for you, Andy, I guess you are similar to Stephen, where you're educating both workers and consumers. And is there anything that you're doing in particular? So the workers in your instance are like airport workers and university workers, right? And so once you install the machines, then they've got to know how to restock it, and they've got to know, what happens if it gets a blue screen of death or whatever, right? Like there are those things. And then there are the consumers that are just walking up to the machine and going like, ramen, I wonder what that does, right? So what is sort of your education plan to make sure people get, like, immediately understand how to use your machine?
So for our system, it's kind of a two direction. One is facing the the service side, like Sean just mentioned about how to train the on-site employee or our F&B partners. So like the university that we install, actually, we don't have any employee over there. We actually rely on the F&B operator, which they already have the staff to be on site to do the cleaning and then to do the restocking. So we give them the SOP to do the line maintenance, restocking, the procedure. We have a PowerPoint. They can, show their employee. We can, train them. And then if they have a question, call the 1-800 number. Then we will have the dedicated person to pick up the call and then help them to solve the issue. And then that's on the training side to do the servicing. And then from the consumer side, actually, we have a big 55-inch screen. Actually, we show the video, we do some advertising over there. And then people will know, oh, this vending system actually is serving the food. So when they touch the system, because we have a big touch here. So when they touch it, actually go to the menu item. So they will see, oh, this machine is selling the food. And then because it's a tablet, people just swiping. They do that all the time, every day. So they know how to do it. And then we have an easy step to guide them to the payment system. Once they complete the payment, food just coming out. So I think our system is facing two different audience. One is the service group, and another is consumer. So that's the way that we try to educate both parties.
Okay, we're nearing the end of our time here. And rather than ask you sort of the typical conference question of what do you see in the next 5 years, right? Because Lord knows what's going to happen in the next 5 years. If the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's hey, don't plan that far in the future. But what I want to focus on is what you're focusing on. What are you focused on over the next year? What is sort of the big next thing for you in terms of automation, whether it's rolling out your automation product or developing a new one or adding automation tools? So Sean, I'll start with you. What is Botrista focused on for the next year?
Next year or next 5 years?
No, just 1 year. Look, again, Lord knows what's going to happen in 5 years. So let's keep it to something that we can manage. Let's just 1 year. What are you doing for the next year?
So part of our focus is, really to become the first deployed robotic solution for F&B sector. So we have a goal of 1,000 machines deployed by end of next year. We are at 15% now. So we have 12 more months. Every month we need to deploy almost 100 machines to reach that goal. So 1,000, imagine 1,000 machines having impact, replacing 1,000 barista jobs, right? So that is quite something that we think will be a good target to go for. So I think in general, this is a good timing and there's a lot of tractions. All we need to do is make sure the operations is streamlined to get this process deployed.
Excellent. Stephen, what is Focus Brands focused on for the next year?
Well, I think for us is making sure that our partnership with Blended, kicks ass. It goes out, it does well. It proves out that robotics is working. Maintenance issues, durability issues for the next year. And let me tell you, if it does, Sean and Andy will be hearing from me. Be like, hey, we got a lot more other brands that we need this type of stuff.
We can do that now. We don't need to wait.
So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's something new for Focus Brands. So it's something that it's almost proving that this is the next generation. A lot of our leadership committee that we talk about, we're all believers in it, but now we need to prove it out. And once it's rolled out, I think that's the direction. So the next year is going to be crucial. So for us,
I just want to see you put some ramen, one of Andy's ramen bowls in a blender, and then just I think we've just invented a combination of F and B, which is the ramen smoothie.
A salted smoothie.
It's got a real umami kick.
Hey, you never know, Andy. We might be interested. We might have to. We might have to be your partner. So.
I mean,
Andy, what is Yokai focused on for the next year?
So this year, our main focus is to partner with the F&B operator. So next year, actually, we try to scale up as soon as possible, because this year we already placed a lot of pilot location for those F&B operators. So next year, once this pilot run has been finished, they will quickly deploy mass locations. Our goal also is have hundreds location in the United States and hundreds of location in Europe and then overseas. So next year will be the quick expansion, and hopefully that we can have the good partnership to help us to expand to the global.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everybody here today. This has been a real treat. I appreciate it. Andy Lin of Yokai, Stephen Yang of Focus Brands, and Sean Su of Botrista Technology. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you to Foodland Ventures and everybody at the APAC F&B Innovation Summit. Once again, my name is Chris Albrecht. I'm with OttOmate.News. That's OTTOMATE.News. And I really appreciate the time, everybody, today. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.